The CCA's Roman sketchbook has not yet been published in a critical edition, but a number of architectural historians have been studying it and have included it in their publications. There's an excellent preliminary report by John Bury preserved here in the collection archive at the CCA, and other scholars who have written about the book include James Ackerman, Ian Campbell and Arnold Nesselrath, Myra Nan Rosenfeld and Anna Bortolozzi. All the drawings after antique architecture contained in it have been catalogued in the database of the Census of Antique Works of Art and Architecture known in the Renaissance. And today I'm going to have a closer look at one of the special items from the prints and drawings collections of the CCA. And later on, a few older books from the library collection will enter the picture as well. Item in question is the so-called Roman sketchbook of about 1530, which we have here. It's called a sketchbook, but I will be talking about a book of drawings, as the term sketchbook denotes something done in haste and done quickly and taking notes on the top of one's head. And that's not what we are looking at here. It's a planfully executed book of drawings recording ancient architecture. It's drawings executed in pen and brown ink over a preparation of stylus incisions and black chalk, even made with the help of a ruler and a compass where needed. Almost all the drawings are annotated and almost all the drawings have measurements on them, all done by the same hand throughout the entire book. The language of the annotations is Italian throughout. The measurements are given in palmi and once, with a few exceptions. The book is not preserved in its original state. As you can see, we have in front of me the remaining of book itself, and there are 4 sheets or double sheets that have been taken out to be preserved separately and which have been presented in an exhibition. What we have here is not the complete remaining book of drawings, which can be detected by looking at the original foliation, which is still preserved in the upper right corner of each sheet. The foliation begins with the number 3 on this sheet, and it runs through number 14. Then there is a gap, begins again with number 21, ending again at 24. Then there's the final section beginning with number 47 and ending with 62. So some parts missing of it in the middle of the book. And we are only in part able to reconstruct what has been lost. What is preserved today can be divided into 2 sections. The first one is devoted to a variety of things. Examples from antique architecture, including views of an entire building sections, as in this page and in the next one. Going to smaller sections of the building, like in columnar order, as in these 2 drawings on folio 7. And going down to further close-up details of architectural details like bases of columns, cornices, entablatures, again a cornice and a decorated base. Cornices too on this sheet, and presented in a variety of representational methods, perspectival views, sections and elevations, and even including some geometrical construction drawings that in this case try to analyze the construction of the pediment triangle of this architecture. On folio 13, we have an example of a later use of the sketchbook, because some later owner added a secondary sheet to this page using the space that was left blank by the original draftsman. And we can see an elaborate design of a framing of a niche or something like that, which is clearly from a different period and by a different hand. So it has nothing to do with the original sketchbook and is a later addition. The annotations to the drawings identify the buildings, or at least give a location of them. As we can see in this example on folio 10, del Templo di Faustina in Roma. So it's clearly identified as the temple of Antoninus and Faustina in the Forum Romanum in Rome. But on the sheet in front of that, it's just written in Roma, which makes it quite hard to identify this detail of an architectural order. And therefore it's not yet clear which monument it does represent. The second part of the book, which is also preserved in its original order and sequence, because it's the gathering containing the folios from 47 to 62, presents a collection of plans, ground plans of antique buildings in Rome and its surroundings. These are mainly plans of buildings of complex configuration. In addition, mostly buildings with centralized plans. This series of plans is especially intriguing because it has a number of parallels in other collections. Together, these drawings form a complex network of information about ancient buildings in Rome, and they're being studied by Renaissance architects, and they need to be studied closer in respect to their relation from one to another, as many of these drawings have been copied with containing different information in each of these sets. So it's possible that we can find information, more complete information in this drawing, in this version of a drawing, compared to another one, or the other way around. And only after having compiled everything in one place, one is able to compare and add up all the information that can be detected from the group of drawings in its entirety. The other sets that are closely connected to this one, preserved in Vienna in the Albertina collection, in the Nationalmuseum in Stockholm, in the Devonshire collection of Chatsworth, and there's a particularly intriguing parallel on one sheet of drawings by Salustio Peruzzi, preserved in the Uffizi in Florence. Particularly interesting, two sequences of drawings that follow another in the original order of the sketchbook, but which are now separated. They are both devoted to circular temples. The first one is the one so-called temple of Vesta in Tivoli, near Rome. The second one is the temple of the so-called Fortuna Virilis at the Forum Boarium in Rome. Both temples have been studied quite frequently throughout the Renaissance because they were the best preserved smaller round temples in Rome and in the vicinity. Both had been transformed into churches in the Middle Ages and were therefore quite well preserved. The draftsman treats both temples the same way. He opens with a perspectival view that includes also sections of the architectural structure, but indicating also that the temple is in a ruinous state of preservation. He identifies the first one in Tivoli by annotating Tempio della Dea Veste sopra al fiume Agnene in Tivoli, and the other one, Tempio della Dea Veste over della Fortuna in Roma. Turning the page in each case, we come to a selection of architectural details ranging from the columnar order in one case or just the column in the second one, and with a number of details ranging from the window frame, door frames, cornices and other moldings present in the two buildings. One interesting feature of these recordings is that in the case of the temple in Tivoli, the draftsman has chosen to identify each of the detailed drawings just by the capital letter A, which is present on the first page in the entablature, and then recurs in every drawing that he wants to indicate as being part of the same building, even coming to the third page where there is a ground plan of the entire structure and two further details. While in the drawing of the temple in Rome, he seems to have become aware that this maybe is not the perfect system of referencing the details to the entire building. So while there is still one main key used, in this case B, for the view, for the column, for the ground plan and the plan of a capital, all the other details have been referenced with letters or signs that reappear either in other detail drawings on the same sheet, as here the star and the S, or in the main drawing on the previous page as the T for the door frame, for instance, or the triangle at the doorsteps. By devoting 3 pages to one and the same building in two cases of representing circular temples, it's becoming once more apparent how the draftsman put a special interest and a special attention to buildings of a circular and centralized plan. As I indicated before, the collection of plans of drawings that make up the second part of the Book of Drawings proved not only very popular throughout the 16th century, showing up in other collection of drawings, but these plans of buildings, some identified, some not identified, were also taken up in printed books on architecture later on. Just to illustrate this with the help of one example, I have opened up here folio 58 of the CCA Book of Drawings, a plan of a complex structure that is not annotated and not given any measurements, so it's quite unclear what it actually represents. And we find this constellation in a number of printed publications later on. In this selection, starting with Jacques-André Dussasseau's series of prints of temples and fortified buildings from the second half of the 16th century, where we find the same structure, but not based, to be sure, on the actual drawing in the Book of Drawings, because it's adding certain features and showing a different configuration of the plan. The feature that is then most interesting about these later reuses of the drawings, or the ideas that were represented in the drawings, are that other architects have then attempted to imagine what elevations of these plans would have looked like. Elevations which were not present in the Book of Drawings, as we can see from its fairly original state of preservation in this part of the book, where there are no elevations included for the plans. Instead, Dussasseau adds 2 elevation reconstructions, one of the front facade of the portico and one of the main facade, and he adds a longitudinal section through the entire building. Another example of a reuse of the same idea of a building of this configuration can be found Giovanni Battista Montano's Cinque Libri di Architettura, here in a later edition edited by Giovanni Battista Soria in 1691, where we again find the same plan of the same building, again with slight variations in certain parts of the plan, and with an added annotation that says Questo Tempio di Ordine Corintio è in Sicilia. We haven't seen any of these information in previous publications or in other sets of drawings of this building, so it's quite probable that this is an addition, and a fantastic addition by Montano. That Montano's reconstruction again is not based on the drawing in the CCA, is obvious from certain differences in detail, and that it's not connected to Dussassot either is apparent from the fact that Dussassot's print reconstructs the building as being mainly of the Tuscan order, while Montano says it's of Corinthian order. Furthermore, he adds a completely different reconstructed elevation for the building. At the end of this chain of transmission of architectural ideas from the Renaissance to later centuries can be seen in Bernard de Montfaucon's L'Antiquité expliquée et représentée en figure, the largest antiquarian illustrated corpus of the 18th century, very influential for the 2 centuries following its publication, where Montfaucon, in his section on ancient temples, inserts a series of plates that include 40 plans, many of which can be traced back to this tradition, and even it can be indicated parallel plans in the CCA's Book of Drawings. So this, to sum up, puts the CCA's Book of Drawings after Antique Architecture, the so-called Roman sketchbook, into its context of the contemporary tradition of drawing antique architecture, and puts it in relation with a tradition of publications on ancient architecture up until the 18th century.